All right, everybody, welcome back to another live Q&A. This is going to be a little bit different. And usually Alicia and I take our Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. and we use it to answer all of your questions about any Canadian immigration topic. But guys, we are located in Alberta. The Alberta Advantage Immigration Program is our baby. And oh my goodness, did they screw it up yesterday? Holy cow. So we are going to devote today to the complete debacle, I guess is the best way of describing it, of the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program's release or reopening of the Alberta Opportunity Stream, the Rural Renewal Stream, let's see, what else do we have on there? The Tourism and Hospitality,
Accelerated Tech.
Right? Accelerated Tech.
And Accelerated Tech.
These programs, Alicia had written a blog post that I'll just share with you, just so those of you who are new to this, we'll go over here to her post. She'd written this post. The moment we learned what they were going to do, Alicia wrote this blog post, which I'd highly encourage you to go read, take a look at. And Igor and I did a live stream. I did one the other day, just the moment we learned kind of what their intentions were. But this blog post, if you haven't read it, this will give you a little bit more of a foundation. But those of you who are watching this probably experienced the debacle that was yesterday. And basically what they've done is, June the 11th, yesterday, they opened up their portal in a creative way, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, to try to manage the massive intake of applications. And I know at one point in time, some people may have seen 20,000 people waiting to get into the queue for how many spots? 430 for the AOS, 30 Accelerated Tech, 145 Rural Renewal Stream, and 130 Tourism and Hospitality Stream applications. And so you can see out of this total 735, there were upwards of 20,000 people trying to get these spots, and the process did not work well. And we did not get in as a firm, and many of you as well. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I appreciate this is usually our Q&A spot, but this is also going to form a part of our Canadian immigration podcast as well, you guys. And this will be let's see, this is episode, I'm just trying to pull it up because we've been
145.
dancing all over. Episode 145 of the Canadian Immigration Podcast. So you can listen to this on, some of you will be listening to this, the audio version, and you should still be able to glean everything we're trying to talk about today. But this is going to be very visual as well, because there are some key critical components that the vast majority of applicants, I'm just positive, missed. And it relates to the employer obligations, the form that the employers have to complete, the employer requirements, the job offer requirements, and these are added pieces that did not exist before that absolutely will be tripping people up because they're brand new, and many people likely didn't fully appreciate what this stuff means. So as immigration lawyers, we're going to try to decipher exactly what's in here, and we're going to share with you today some of the things that for sure are probably causing a lot of you to wonder, what does the future hold for me? Is this even possible for me? What are your initial thoughts, Alicia?
Yeah, and I feel the frustration because I see comments of people saying it was like a Hunger Games, right? I had to take the day off of work to try to sit there to try to hope for a spot in line and never got in. I'm wondering if anybody successfully applied yesterday, right? Like, what's going on? And same thing. So we had clients who tried to log in. One of the things to keep in mind is that they had not said when this program was opening, right? And it used to be, for everybody who's familiar with Alberta Advantage Immigration Program, there's a portal, right? So you have to sign up for this My Alberta Digital ID. So everybody has to have that already. It used to be that you could sign in with My Alberta Digital ID and you could go and you could draft your application, right? It was all there for you. You could sign in with your username and password. You could have a verified account if you live in Alberta. If you don't have a verified account, there is a way to be able to sign up for this My Alberta Digital ID, but that's what's going to take you to the portal. Once you get in the portal, it used to be that you could draft your application, right? You could go in and and there's many, many pages. It's a very long application, guys. But as of last week, as soon as they announced that it was now going to be a new system on a race to file, they shut it down. And so when you logged in, it had it all grayed out. So you could see that AOS was there and the other different types of applications were there. But if you are on any of the race to file ones, so AOS, Alberta Tech, Rural Renewal, as well as the Tourism Hospitality, it's all grayed out. So you
And
don't
the
have an
interesting thing,
opportunity.
Alicia, too, I'll jump in. On Friday, Igor and I, we went in to show people
Hmm.
where to go. And so we logged in, we clicked on the sign in button. Oh, look familiar, server error.
Hmm.
But we went in here, logged in, and the rural renewal stream was still visible. So we
Hmm.
were able to click on the rural renewal stream and give people a little bit of an overlay of some of the questions and what it looks like. And in the course, the Alberta Opportunity Stream, we've got a course that we're running now. We've got more intel, you guys. So when it comes to this next cohort that's coming, we're now going to, on July 9th, you now have basically a month to sort through all this stuff. So we are going to be teaching, educating, sharing as much information that we know as possible, as well as trying to reach out to the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program and share insight on what happened. Now, I'm sure they've probably been watching this, Alicia, their Twitter feed with the rage that is going on as a result of what happened. And if you look here, I think many people didn't realize, people probably searched Twitter or X for Alberta Advantage Immigration Program. Well, it's all under at Opportunity AB, the Alberta Immigration and Multiculturalism account. And if you scroll down here, and this is one of the questions people had was, well, when is it going to start? Well, the reality is I didn't even see this. You guys didn't see this, but allegedly on June 10th, okay, the day before, this was the post that they made. More people want to immigrate than we have nominations for. As of June 11th at 8:15 a.m., our Alberta Advantage Immigration Program is adopting new guidelines to help manage demand. Find out more with the updates page, which we've gone to the updates page a lot. So what happened,
Nothing.
guys? Well, if we scroll down here, you can see, oh, we're aware, and this is like 21 hours ago. So this would be about, probably 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, whatever. It's 10, 11 a.m. now. We are aware some are continuing to experience technical issues. We are working to resolve them. Thank you for your patience. Hello, everyone. Due to high volumes of applicants, our portal is experiencing some technical difficulties. Duh, it's like crushing demand. We are working to resolve this as quickly as possible. We apologize for any inconvenience this may cause. Are you serious? Like, this is like torture. And then the technical issues is now resolved. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. And that was a full 2 hours after. So people are stuck sitting. Like during the day, these people, you guys are all working. This is a work day.
Hmm.
So, and your immigration consultants, your immigration lawyers, well, I guess they blocked everything off and pushed all their other clients aside. But the reality is they couldn't even submit this application without you. So this is what we're dealing with. And, and so this, if you haven't gone here, the Alberta Immigration and Multiculturalism, I guess this is where the most up-to-date current information is. If we go to the updates page itself, let's just slide over here. I'm going to refresh it and let's see if there's any new information today. Maybe apologizing for the debacle. No, not a bloody thing. So essentially, I guess this is probably the Twitter feed is the most current information that you can get. And this is kind of the lead up to all of this. Now, Alicia, one of the things that we tried to do was to access checklists, right? We tried to find a place where we could prepare documents in advance because, well, let's talk about what we know about the system itself. So I'm just going to slide over here. And our first, the first thing that I want to identify is that, just basically some background information on this whole process. So Alicia, why did they feel they needed to do this?
And so we've talked about, we did another podcast where we talked about the future of PNPs and what are your chances if you are in Alberta, you're running out of status on your work permits, what are your chances to try to get a nomination under one of the PNP programs? And it is a very, very competitive landscape out there right now. And there are very few spots. And so one of the things that's been happening, of course, we're in June, we're halfway through the year. Most of the provinces have gone through approximately half of their nominations for this year, but most of them are working on inventory from last year. Same thing with the Alberta PNP. They have a huge intake from last year that they are still sitting on as an inventory of applications in the queue. And the one really annoying thing about the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program is they are a black box. They are not like other provinces where they say, here are the criteria, here are the points that you get for meeting these criteria. We will assess your application based on these objective criteria and your ranking within the pool. Mm-mm. They just say, you know what, you can put your application in, or you used to be able to put your application in, and based on their black box criteria, some of which we know, they will decide whether they want to issue you a notification of interest or a nomination, depending on the case as the case may be. So what's happened in Alberta is we only have a maximum of 9,750 nomination spots for 2024, same as we had for last year. There is huge demand for those spots. They tried to open up that tourism and hospitality stream on its own,
Yeah.
just through the old system. It was instantly full, right? Those 500-ish spots were gone within less than a business day. So they realized they needed to recalibrate, and so they closed AOS, and they now announced June 3rd they were going to reopen, but they didn't give us any details. So this is where we're at. This is kind of the background of the process. AOS has been around for a long time. They had their old document checklist. It was on the website. It was on the website as of Friday, June 7th. It was the old document checklist. And then, and then a brand new document checklist appears. So there was not really good messaging from Alberta Advantage Immigration Program. This was not on their updates. It was not anywhere on their website as of Friday morning. And this new requirement for the Alberta Employer Declaration Form is a big deal because it wasn't required in the past for AOS applications, but it is now. And that happened on Friday. And the annoying thing to me that I just don't think is right is they backdated that form. So the version date on that employer declaration form is actually backdated to May 27th. And
So let's take a look
that's
at
not
this, because
actually
I
when it
know
was
Igor and
there.
I were able to pull it up, and I was surprised
Mm-hmm.
because I looked at it and I was like, wait a minute, this looks different than the other one. And this
Mm-hmm.
was on Friday when we did our,
Mm-hmm.
if we go here to our, Igor and I, we did a live, let's see, when was it? Yeah, this one right here. We did it on Friday. Well, it says 1 day ago. Oh, that's not right. We do 1 day. Maybe we only updated it 1 day ago. I don't know. Anyways, this Alberta Opportunity Stream, we went through it and we actually pulled up the document checklist that we see right here. And so that was the first time we'd seen it, just like you, was June the 7th, I guess it
7th,
was, right?
Friday.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see here they've got this date kind of stamped as May 27th, 2024, which was not the case. And there are some, can you imagine this, Alicia? Okay. You're opening a program on Monday, essentially, a Tuesday, I
Tuesday.
guess it is Tuesday. Okay. And the Friday before the weekend, you magically slide in this document checklist with some very, very major changes, major changes. And they relate as much to the employer as they do to you. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
give everyone just a little bit of background. So the old program manager, basically the director of the Alberta, well, at one time it was the PNP, then it was the Alberta Immigrant Nominee Program. Now it's the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program. But when they had looked at creating something like the Alberta Opportunity Stream years ago, when they realized that employers were really exploiting their workers. In other words, workers had no ability to move or change from bad employers. And so then that director said, look, we need to do something to give people more flexibility so that if they are in a, not as great of a situation, they have the ability to secure a job offer or move their nomination to another employer, to give them more control so that they weren't just basically at the mercy of the employer. Well, it's so amazing. The Alberta Opportunity Stream was created that way, and it was one of the most flexible, open programs out there. And of course, its success led to this massive demand, coupled with what we're dealing with right now with the large volumes of temporary residents in Alberta and across the country. And so now, with very little warning, although they did start to roll out some of the expectations in terms of employers, heightened expectations, the messaging, like we talked about, was really poor. So now what Alicia and I want to share with you guys is what this really means. Especially we're directing this to your employers as much as anything, because they have to work hand in hand with you. If you are hoping to get through without the support of your employer, it's not going to happen. because there are expectations from your employer that they're supporting you in your permanent residence now in a way that didn't exist before. And there are some nuances, whether your employer is a large publicly traded company versus a private company, but still the expectations are that you're not going to be able to get through unless you have support from them in some fashion, largely because of the form and the other documents that they have to include. All right, so Alicia, this is kind of where we're at right now. We've got this, this checklist that was released at the last minute, poor messaging, and really, we now understand that the whole process and reason they've done this is because there is a massively crushing demand for these limited spots. The federal government has not increased the allocation to Alberta for 2024. And so when you have way more people than you have spots, the government has to figure out a way to deal with this and how to manage it in as fair a way as possible. And one of the things as well that I want to address is that unfortunately there are bad actors that are involved in this. Individuals who decide they're going to set up some company, and we'll use the rural renewal stream for an example, set up a company in one of these rural communities in Alberta, lease or rent a little office space for 6 months, not have any operations there, and then sell those spots to people, try to sell the nominations. And that's really what has driven the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program to have to put in these crazy measures. So once again, a few bad apples, spoils the whole bunch. And in fairness, I understand why the province is trying to do this. They're trying to clean it up. They're trying to make it fair. But in the process of rolling it out, I just wish, I wish they would have asked us, Alicia. I wish they would have talked to us. I wish they would have done more due diligence speaking with the other provinces or with IRCC, because what I'd like to do now is to get into the actual kind of process a little bit. And you gave a really good analogy, Alicia, to people trying to apply to this program. And when you're trying to, register a spot for camping, in Alberta. So can you talk just a little bit about this process? Because we know this is the starting point right here, trying to log in here. But what many, many people saw, and I guess, I'm going to just shift around here. Just give me 1 second. I got to move my screen around because I want to pull this up, and then I'm going to share it. Oh, yes. Okay. I'm going to share this on my own screen. This will be easier. This is what many people saw. Okay. So this is what they were looking at. And you can see at the top, it says QIT, alberta.qit.net. And you have a place in line. And in this case, the person was 1,449. But we know of people that were seeing 20,000, the number of users in line ahead of you. And so this is one of the realities that people saw when they were, trying to log in. So Alicia, do you want to give kind of just a little bit of an explanation of how this conceptually was designed to work, or at least how the province thought it might work?
Well, and so this is brand new. It never used to be that you had to get into this QIT space in line. And so it's kind of like booking tickets or trying to book a campground spot in Alberta right now. The instant that program opens, so I kept checking, and before 9 a.m. yesterday, all it was giving was a service unavailable, HTTP 503 error code. That's it. That's all you got when you tried to log into the portal or access the portal. As
Something
of
kind
9
of like
o'clock,
this service error kind of, which
yeah,
Alicia, I actually tried while we were here. I tried to log in just with
yeah.
some other logins, and well, that's incorrect username or password. But I'm getting the error message now when I try to log in.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you try to log in when the portal is not open, right, on one of these magical days that they've rolled out for the rest of the year, it's not going to let you proceed apparently at all right now. But when you tried to log in before 9 a.m. yesterday, it was giving a 503 error code, service unavailable. As soon as 9 o'clock rolled over, then people could enter their username and password, but it's putting you in this QIT line. And I don't know exactly when we try to go camping, when we try to log on for camping, my husband and I have, both of our cell phones going and the computer. And we're hoping that one of those devices is going to get in and we're going to have some sort of way to book our campground. Well, it seems like this is now what they're using for the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program, that they are randomly assigning for the minute that clock rolls over to 9 o'clock or 9:01, then those people who are there get randomly assigned a spot in the queue. and everybody else has a spot in the queue. And then if you move away from that page, if you navigate away from that page, you're done. Your spot
Yep.
in the queue is gone. So literally, I've had clients who are calling me saying, I'm at work. I had to use my device. I had to use my computer. I had to use my phone. I navigated away from the page. Now I'm 9,000th in line, right?
Yep.
So you literally have to sit there and take the day off work and hope that you get a spot in this queue at line. So that's what they're doing now. And
And
then it
it's
says you've
interesting,
only got
Alicia. I'll
50.
just jump in just quickly here. Sorry to cut you off. This is one of the things that we're still trying to understand. There is allegedly a randomness to the assignment of the spots, and I guess if 1,000 people are all hitting the system at the very exact time, then yeah, it has to assign people, a spot. But at this stage, we're still not entirely certain if it's any different than first in, first out in terms of race to file. So one of the federal government went away from releasing the place where people were to apply until the last minute is to avoid people from using bots and other automatic, connection software tools to auto, to try to auto log in, and give people unfair advantages. But Alberta, for whatever reason, I don't know if they just don't like to talk with the federal government or other provinces, but that's exactly, I think, what's happened here, Alicia, is that some people knew it was going to be in this location and they were able to implement whatever software they have. There's a huge advantage with more tech savvy people. And so I think, this is one of the issues that I wish the province would have thought through a little bit more, because the average person is just going to get left out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so this is the process. You can't even get past the post. You can't even log in to the portal if you're stuck in this queue at line. And by 11 o'clock, I got a message from Igor saying it's back to the HTTP 503 error code that the service is unavailable. So, and I saw comments here in the live stream of people saying that, it seemed like the server was only functional for 15 minutes at a time. So my guess is they were completely overwhelmed and it did not go well yesterday. And we don't even know if anybody got their application submitted. If you happen to
Yeah,
have got your application
please
submitted,
let
let
us
us
know.
know.
Yeah, we would love to know if how many people actually got in. But remember, there was only 700 spots, okay? So it's not like there was a whole bunch of people like the TR to PR pathway or like the H1B where there were 10,000 spots available. This is truly a rare occurrence that you're going to be able to get one of these spots. I liken it to the Ontario immigrant nominee programs, like the PhD process. Sometimes they would just open it up and then boom, it would be filled in like 2 seconds. Well, this is very, very similar to that. Very, very similar. Let's just flip over and just read a few of the comments. So yes, so Tinu says it was Hunger Games. Some other people said games. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I lost the day's income. Yes, exactly. As I was in front of my computer all day. That's exactly, Tino, what we were talking about. That it's just terrible. And yeah, Tino says, I was wondering if anyone successfully applied. Let's go down and just address a few others. Okay, let's see here. I'm trying to get, okay. And then let's see, well, this is an RNIP. See, people are now looking, Alicia, to all over the place to try to find other places. And, you really have to be knowledgeable about all the programs to see if there are any that are possibilities. And Arinze here says, please, any update on RNIP? How long does it take to get the community recommendations? Well, even with the RNIPs, I can guarantee that the quotas that are given to those communities are long filled. Claresholm in Alberta is no different than the Alberta Opportunity Stream, the Rural Renewal Stream. Their quotas were filled for this year already, so they didn't have an unlimited number of spaces. Let's just see here. Is there any other comments that are worth? Okay, well, I'll get back to some more of those comments, but Alicia, let's jump to the real issues. And yes, the whole thing was a debacle. We will continue to share more information as it comes out, absolutely. But the reality is there are some aspects of this that no matter who got in, there's going to be a rare occasion where they do this properly. And and the provinces are just as bad. they're just as awful as the federal government in terms of their desire to kick applications back. In fact, I have for the first time in a long time, I have a very, very difficult call coming up here at noon for one of our clients that I reviewed their OINP application. And it looks like when in the course of us reviewing the application, there was an attestation form, and I truly can't remember how it could have been missed, but there was one checkbox that somehow was not checked on the authorization form when they were submitting to the OINP, that now they've returned the whole application, Alicia. So at noon, I have a very, very difficult meeting with a client to figure out exactly what happened during the course of our review. And I can't remember if I turned it over to them to do the last filing, I think is what happened after we'd reviewed everything else. But the reality is the smallest mistake, can have just massive consequences. They just don't even equate. A failed checkbox or a failed form being completed properly. You may have sat all day, got your application in, and then get it returned because you don't have the employer declaration form. So let's talk about this, Alicia. I think this is probably the first thing that we should, or do you want to address the checklist and then transition? Like, how do you want to do it?
Well, I think the checklist, the biggest thing on the checklist is just like we talked about, that checklist was backdated. So they didn't release that checklist. It wasn't on their website as a requirement for AOS, and it wasn't there until
Yeah.
Friday, June 7th. And the important thing, if you go down to the employer declaration form, this did not used to exist. So this whole section was not there on the old checklist as
No.
of Friday. So this is new. You now need, so just like Mark said, like some people might have gotten a spot in the queue, managed to magically enter in and log in and actually fill out their ridiculous number of pages of application and submit it, and they might not have a properly completed document checklist with their updated form and the updated employer document checklist, employer form. So this is new. It didn't used to be the case that for AOS employers had to do an employer declaration form, and now they do. So this is very, very important for a few reasons. And I've had a few Alberta employers reaching out saying, what is this form? Do I sign it? What are my liabilities or risks if I sign this form? What am I agreeing to? Because this was sprung upon people with zero notice. So employers need to be very, very careful to understand that there are caps in place now. So there didn't used to be. This is a brand new thing as of March of 2024. Again, there was no public announcement about this. There was nothing that was put on the AAIP to highlight the fact that this is happening. But as of any application received after March 18th, 2024, employers are now capped. And so when you are, as an employer, looking at your employees and saying, who do I want to support for a PNP, understand that you might only be able maybe to support one person at most, depending on how much revenue you've made, how many years of operation you've been in, and how many full-time employees you have. So this employer declaration form, if you scroll down on this one, Mark, right at the bottom of this first page, it says, right there, it says total number of AAIP nominees requested for work location include candidates currently waiting to be assessed and candidates that were previously approved by the AAIP. Now, this is super important, and we'll talk about how many people you're allowed to have. The other thing I wanted to highlight on here is there's a requirement for the employer to put in their NAICS code, right? Their North American Industry Certification System code. And so they have to identify what kind of industry they're in. And a lot of people probably don't know, and so you better look it up and know ahead of time. So this total number of AAIP nominees, if you now go over to the AAIP website and you look at the employer obligations, there is a section on here that a whole bunch of people have probably missed for job offer and employer requirements. And you scroll down on here, if you look at the employer requirements, there's a number of them, right? The business has to have been incorporated. It has to be actively operating. So if you scroll
And I
down
want
a
to point
little
out
bit more.
Alicia, I want to point out one thing here. Do you see
Mhm,
what the first point is here?
mhm.
This absolutely, this rationale here is there for a reason. It's because of this stupid freaking cheaters and scammers. Man, I'll tell you, Alicia, I wish I was in immigration enforcement. I wish that I've said this repeatedly, every single Canadian that's involved in scamming should be thrown in jail with a lengthy jail time. And every person that's come to Canada as a foreign worker, permanent resident, I don't care if you're a citizen now, should have everything stripped and them removed from Canada. Because it's people like this that have caused all of this, the exploitation of people that are desperate. And Alicia, right now, more than ever before in the history of immigration in our country, we have thousands of people that are desperate. And when there is desperation, there are snakes that slither out of the woods looking to exploit and take advantage, including fake everything, fake businesses. How hard is it to incorporate a business? Well, you can do it, in 5 minutes and then make up a whole host of things. So business is legitimate. They're actually providing a good or service in Alberta. You are being offered employment consistent with their business activities or needs, and that they can fulfill all the terms of the job offer or the employment contract based on the following employer requirements, which must be verifiable by the AAIP. And what does verifiable mean? It means that these applications are going to take longer to process, even those who have them in. And so, sorry, Alicia, now to the employer requirements.
And one of the important things for employers to know when they're signing that employer declaration form is they are literally giving permission to the AAIP to release all this information to law enforcement, to cross-reference it with CRA, to cross-reference it with IRCC, and a whole bunch of different government organizations. So they will be following up and checking. So these are requirements that are new for AOS. The employer declaration form has to be filled out, and to meet eligibility to do the employer declaration form, employers have to meet this.
Yep.
So you've got to be incorporated, you've got to have been in active continuous business in operation in Alberta for a minimum of 2 fiscal years. So you have to have 2 years of corporate tax returns. Period. If you do not have 2 years of corporate tax returns and you haven't been operating in Alberta, you can't support any employees, and you better not be filling out any employer declaration forms.
Prior to application submission. So you have to be able to demonstrate it before, in this case, June 11th.
Yeah. The next thing is it can't be a fully remote business. You have to have some sort of place of business where employees can report and work regularly as needed, right? So there has to be an office somewhere. You've got to demonstrate a need for the position, and this is important too. So your employee already has to be working and living in Alberta with a valid work permit either under the Temporary Foreign Worker Program or the International Mobility Program. If you don't know what those mean, we've done a whole podcast series on the IMP and the TFWP. So please go check.
And I'll point something out here. I'll point something out here as well, Alicia. Every work permit out there arguably falls under either the Temporary Foreign Worker Program or the International Mobility Program, but not all work permits make you eligible to go through the Alberta Opportunity Stream. And so that's the distinction here. So they need, if you need to show that you have a valid work permit at the time of applying. So Alicia, how does the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program treat maintained status?
And so the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program says you need to have a valid work permit. They don't count maintained or implied status. So if your PGWP, which is under the IMP, so a postgrad work permit is an open work permit, it is authorized under the International Mobility Program, under Regulation 205 sub C. But if that has expired and you submitted an extension application, so let's say your employer managed to go get an LMIA and you submitted an application to change conditions on your work permit to an LMIA supported, you've got technically maintained status. And if you don't have that work permit back yet, AAIP can say you're ineligible. So be super careful with this, employers.
Bet. And let's pay attention as well here to these little conjunctive or whatever we have here. So you can see a valid work permit issued under one of these, or, okay, and I think some people miss this, or if you don't fit under this, then this is the next thing.
That's right. So technically this is now disjunctive, right? This or this. So if you have a valid work permit under IMP or TFWP, great. That is how the employer can demonstrate the need for the position. Or Literally, the employer needs to have undertaken recruitment efforts. They need to have
Yeah.
advertised and recruited just like they would have to under the temporary foreign worker program, which is 4 weeks, 4 continuous weeks on job bank. If it's high skilled, there's a certain set of advertising requirements for where it has to be advertised and for how long. If it's low skilled, there's another set of how you target different underrepresented groups. And if that person is not in Alberta, this is probably the only way that you can show a business need is you have to have properly done recruitment efforts as an employer. These are the employer's requirements, right? This is not up to the individual to prove recruitment. This is the employer that has to do it. The next thing is this is important again when we're looking at conjunctive or disjunctive. So the normal rule is the company has to have a minimum total gross annual revenue. So they have to have filed their corporate tax returns showing that they have at least $400,000 for the most recent fiscal year and a minimum of 3 full-time or full-time equivalent employees in Alberta. They don't count independent contractors. They do say that if you have multiple part-time employees, you could add it up to try to hit that 3 full-time equivalent, but those people each have to be working, a total adding up to at least 30 hours per week. If the employer can't show that, so keep in mind, if you haven't been operating in Alberta for 2 years, fiscal years, you're done. You can't even do the employer declaration form. If you have been operating for 2 years, but you can't meet this requirement for 400,000 and three full-time employees, then there's an alternative for the company. The company could try to show that they are still wanting to support an employee, but they're going to be capped. They're going to be restricted in the number of nominee applications that they can support. As long as they've been operating for 2 years, they could get one nominee. That is it. If they've been operating for longer, if they've been operating for 3 years, they could get 2 nominees. And if you keep going down, it says caps on the number of nominees will be applied to all applications received after March 18th. If a nominee leaves the employer, that nomination
Yes.
continues to be counted towards that employer.
And then Alicia and I were talking about this before we started this live. And really what this is saying is, hey, if you're an employer and you nominate someone and they very quickly leave and move to Ontario or even are no longer employed with you, well, that's it. That spot will be counted towards your cap, the total number that you as a business are able to have. So I see this being a real issue for franchises who, like, especially fast food, who are going through this process where, the workers who are there, they, they, as soon as they get the permanent residence, they move on. And in fairness, there may be really good employers, but people just, they pursue other opportunities. They pursue other ventures. They advance their career and they move on. They don't stay. But it's also, I think, targeting individuals. If we look back at this, I think it's targeting companies that maybe are using this as a money-making process, who are not really taking steps to make their workplace a place where people want to stay. And so, I think to some extent they are trying to reward employers who are doing, what they can to build a good work culture and a place where people want to stay and work. But very, very interesting that they specifically address this.
Yep. So understand that when you fill out that employer declaration form and it says how many people has your company nominated, if you're a small employer and you've got 2 people you want to nominate through even different streams, right? It's not limited to this one stream. If it's any employer linked application through AAIP, you're capped at how many people that you can nominate, and that's going to last. So be careful when you are looking in. And I'm thinking now that more and more people are going to realize, oh, wait a minute, we need an employer declaration form for AOS. They're going to be going to their employers and they're going to be saying, just sign this. And the employer is going to hopefully pay attention to what they're signing and make sure that they understand the implications of this.
Yeah. One other thing I want to point out on this last bullet point, and I've said this at the beginning, right at the beginning, you must confirm with your employer that they are able to support your application, which, I'll be honest, ran completely contrary to the spirit and rationale for creation of the AOS in the first place. But I understand why they're doing it now. And this is another thing that all of you who are hoping, well, I'll just go ahead, get the spot, submit my application. And I even had a question about this yesterday, Alicia, where someone says, can we
Yeah.
provide the declaration form later, after? Your application fee will not be refunded. I want you to key in on that particular phrase. Here, they say if your employer supports more applicants than permitted based on their years of operation in Alberta. You guys may have no clue, right, what that is. You could innocently assume that you're fine and dandy because, hey, you're the only one working for the employer right now, and you could be caught unaware. And the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program says, too bad, so sad. Your processing fee will not be refunded if we discover that your employer has issues. And so you have to be super careful. Those of you who feel you're going to file an incomplete application and have an opportunity to perfect it after, it is not going to happen. And Alicia, I'd be shocked if out of the, we go back to your blog post here, out of the 735, I would be shocked if even half of those were complete. Maybe 10%, 15%. So this one really is a true guinea pig. And I would be shocked if the AAIP, the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program, didn't make changes and alterations to how things are going to play out when the next round happens June on July the 9th. And I
Yeah.
just can't see any way around it. And I want to point out one last thing too. This is why we created this course and masterclass, which there should be a link in the description below, maybe for this, I can't remember. But if you go to the Canadian Immigration Institute, you can subscribe. We are going to have regular masterclasses where we talk our way through this, where we share insight, where we give you strategies for trying to make sure that come that next cohort, when the July 9th comes, that you are really prepared. But the big elephant in the room, Alicia, is just getting in, right?
Yeah. And so, Mark, maybe we can flip to Isabella's question. She says, for the Accelerated Tech program, what does it mean by application target met on their website? Does it mean the 30 nominations have been issued? And so this is important. If we look at the updated AAIP website, when you look to processing times and inventory, it now actually says on the June 11th draw for Express Entry Stream, Accelerated Tech. Yeah, so if you go to processing times and inventory, and then you scroll down part of the way down the page. It doesn't have any updates here, but if you keep going down, yeah, into the application processing and further down on this one, it
This is
says
as
May
of May
29th.
29th. You guys, this is as
Yeah,
of May 29th.
but if you keep going down, keep going down even further, yeah, application date. So here's where I think Isabel's looking. It says application target met now for Accelerated Tech Pathway. And so, Isabella, keep in mind that that means that they allowed 30 people to apply. That does not mean that they issued 30 nominations, right? They are only allowing 30 people to apply. So not only do you have to have basically won the lottery to try to get into that portal, into the Qt stream, and then log in and then file your application, it doesn't even mean that that's a complete application or an eligible application, but they only allowed 30 applications in. And that doesn't mean that they're issuing 30 nominations to those people or to any people. Really, they can do their nominations whenever they want. It just means that's how many applications they let in on that day. That's it. So this is a crazy thing to make sure that you have in perspective, that if you are relying on the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program and that's your ticket to PR and that's the only pathway you have, you better start trying to diversify your options.
Yep. And I also want to point out here, once again, that these are targets by date. So the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program is not locking themselves in per se, that they're only going to take 430 in this crazy frenzy of this filing frenzy, right? That's not the case. The reality is they're probably going to take more. At least I would assume they're going to take more than 430 for the Alberta Opportunity Stream, knowing that people will have no clue what Alicia is explaining here about this job offer and the employment requirements and this, this lovely, this form that the vast majority of people will not have had an employer complete. Like realistically, Alicia, like this is, yeah, this, people knew that this was here. And so those who were super proactive may have been fortunate enough to get an employer to quickly sign off, but does an employer really know what's going on and what they're
Well,
signing off on?
and literally they had one business day, right? They had, if you hadn't noticed this, if you'd tried to prepare everything ahead of time, you had it all printed off and were ready to go, and you didn't notice they changed the website, sometime midday on Friday, and you didn't get your employer to sign it, you're done. The other thing that I will quickly just briefly touch on is the job offer requirements, because
Mhm.
it's not every job offer that's going to be able to be supported by that employer declaration form and by what the employer is signing off on. It has to be a full-time job. It has to be employment that's going to continue for 12 months or more. So you've got to prove that you have the ability to legally work on a work permit. It's got to be full-time, at least 30 hours per week, making sure that you have the ability to have a place to go in person. And this is one that always trips people up on the wages. So yeah, underneath the employer requirements, we've got the job offer requirements. And if you look at the job offer requirements, one of the big ones is wages and benefits that meet the provincial minimum wage, and this is important, you've got to exceed the lowest starting wage for your occupation under ALIS. And so it's not the National Job Bank. We're looking at the ALIS website. So this is the All Industries in Alberta. You've got to go look at this. And when you look at the wages, the really annoying thing is they're using the old NOT codes. They're using the 4-digit NOT codes. But maybe just click on one, Mark. Maybe click on like accommodation service managers or something like that. What they mean by the lowest starting wage. So if you scroll down on here, it's going to give you a little table. And then at the very bottom, yeah, so if you keep scrolling down on this page a little bit lower, Mark, if you look down, yeah, starting wages. So if you look at starting wages and then you see the average. So for this knock, and you'd have to do the knock comparison to figure out what the 5-digit code is, but for this job, the lowest average starting wage is $27.94. A lot of people get messed up on this, right? So it's not the median wage, it's the lowest starting average wage is the 27.94. So there are a whole bunch of other things that you and your employer need to double check before you submit your AAIP application.
Yeah. And once again, Alicia, these are things that people are just not going to understand. They're not. And with the limited time they had, June 11th, yes, was a debacle. But now people are going to need to educate themselves because, yes, there's uncertainty. We don't know for sure how easy or possible it's going to be to get one of those spots. But people, you have no choice but to do the due diligence, to
And
understand everything that you need to include.
And Mark, I'm going to jump in because Nietzsche's
Mm.
demon is saying portal is back up now, guys. Quota has not been met as per Twitter. The portal opened at 10:30 today for AAIP. There's thousands waiting in the queue. The line is paused. Don't know how anybody can submit a complete application under these circumstances. So apparently, because it was so terrible yesterday, they've opened the portal up again today, and it's a whole schmozzle again.
That's interesting. You got to love that. You got to love that. And it makes sense, right? It makes sense. So are people going to just sit around and wait for unending hours? Like I can't see any immigration consultant or any lawyer being able to do this for their clients. Um, all right, well, let's see. So the portal, as far as logging into the portal, Alicia, yeah, I'm not going to log in, guys. Like I'm not going to log in here because the moment I do that, it will reveal, client information, or our own test information. But this, yeah, the process trying to log in, it's going to be ugly. It really is. I don't know how else to, those of you should have all created your account, but ultimately the sign in process is, yeah, it's going to be, a gong show. So I guess just because we just literally just went in, it's wow, that's frustrating, isn't it? That
Yeah, it
is
says I just tried logging it. It says I have a place in line. There's 3,266 people ahead of me. The line is paused.
3,200. Nice.
Yeah,
Well, there you go.
yeah.
And
So that's where we're at.
yeah. And now let's just take a look because we were looking at the Alberta page, right? We were dutifully checking out the updates by date. And so significant technical difficulties and working to address them. We apologize for the inconvenience. I'm still not seeing anything updated here. So let's go back to Twitter. Did they announce we've now reopened it on Twitter? Let's see. Oh, there you go.
Reopen.
So 24 minutes ago, right after we looked at it,
Mm-hmm.
so this clearly, guys, is where you go to monitor and see. But we'll reopen today, June 12th at 10:30 a.m. until stream application targets are met. Thank you for your patience. So I wonder if anyone made it through yesterday. And I'm always curious. I love the comment sections. Is the portal going to be functional today? Absolutely embarrassing rollout. Has the AOS target been reached? Maybe these ones are ones we don't want to show. Same issue again. Wow, this is so bad. It's been 2 days and this is what they got as a solution, almost doing nothing, going in and pushing out website. It is not allowing anyone to fill the application. If the website can't handle it, then how are we supposed to finish all the steps from A to S to complete the whole thing? Can you please make it as we can fill in the first page, then come back to fill in the rest, as that is more realistic? I will like that one. So,
Yeah. And so one thing to keep in mind is if you do manage to get into the portal and go to the application page, you have to create your contact page before it'll save anything. And if you
yes.
can't save your contact page, you're done. The whole system spins. So once
Yep.
you've saved your contact page, so it literally has an alphabet, A all the way down. And you've got to go through like almost the entire alphabet before you're done your application.
Yeah. Yeah. It
If
is.
there's
It's
an error
crazy.
on any single letter, right? If you get to a field and there's an error, it won't let you progress.
Yep. Each of the sections, and we've covered this in the past, each of the sections are sequential. Once you've completed the information, you can jump back, but not until you've gone through.
Mhm.
Each section, when you complete everything, allows you to advance to the next and to the next to the next. And there is an ability to save once you've completed everything within those windows. But ultimately, it's really, really scary. So from what we understand at this stage, if you are able to get in, and I'm so curious to hear if anybody actually has been, once you're in, I can't see any world where they're going to bounce you out if you don't complete the information, upload all your documents all in one sitting. At least that's my view. But we don't have anything to say otherwise. So we're at this stage, we're at the mercy. I'd love to hear if anyone, I didn't see anyone here who's watching today actually get in and complete their application. Maybe you guys can let me know. Um, yeah, and here we've got, and I want to give a shout out here to Nietzsche here, Nietzsche's demon, who is also providing a little bit of entertainment here on X's account as well. So, or I should say the Alberta's X account. All right. Yeah. So what do we say, Alicia? The reality is going forward here. The job offer requirements. I think we were kind of right in the midst of those when we realized, oh, the portal's up again. Let's just
Mhm.
let's just wrap those up and just finish off with the job offer requirements. If I can find it here, let's see.
Yeah.
There we go.
So keep in mind, job offer requirements, wage is important. Making sure that there's a list of ineligible occupations, so keep that in mind too. If you're looking at AOS, if you happen to have a not code that's on the ineligible list, you're done. You can't do this. But there's ineligible applicants based on job offer, and then specifically for AOS, there's also ineligible not codes. So that's
Yeah.
something to keep in mind. And then the other thing is that it has to be at least 30 hours per week, full
Yeah.
time for at least 12 months or more.
Yeah.
Contractors, part-time, seasonal, none of that is going to work regardless of hours. So even if you work 80 hours during the summer, too bad doesn't count. And that's not something that the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program is ever going to nominate an employer or an applicant for. And then this is important too about zoning. So if you scroll down a little bit on the ineligible for zoning, yeah, employees who work in Alberta in a place of employment that's not zoned for commercial operations, such as home-based businesses, are never going to be eligible under
No.
this program.
No. They're going to be ineligible. And this becomes a real issue for any type of a knowledge-based company where you don't need a bricks and mortar operation to function. Like even our firm, Alicia, like we have an office, we have a space for sure, but but we never really meet with our clients that way. We work out of our homes, and this is the efficiency that we've been able to develop, and we find we work better with our clients this way. It's more efficient, it's more effective, but when it comes to the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program, what they're doing, you guys, is looking for every way they can to cull out all of the many applicants that in the past were potentially eligible. And these are, this provision was always in place. This isn't a new one. The
Yep.
Alberta Advantage Immigration Program has always favored bricks and mortar operations over virtual ones. Why? Well, if someone is required to come into the place of business, even periodically, there's a far greater likelihood that they are going to stay and live in Alberta, which is the key for all of this. So when
Yeah, and
individuals are
that's
applying, mm-hmm.
That's the last bullet point here. And this is something that I have to tell people on consults all the time. If you are not actually working in Alberta, if you are working from outside of Alberta, even if you're working for an Alberta-based employer, you're not going to be eligible for a nomination under the AAIP. So this is super, super important for people to understand. I did see a note from Ricardo Foster too. Chad's
Chad says
192 in
he's
line. That's pretty
192 in
good.
line.
It's
Hang
pretty
in
good,
there,
Chad.
buddy. Hang in there.
Yeah. Ricardo Foster, and when we were talking about the employer caps too, when does this reset? So if you've been in operation for 2 years as a business and you've supported one employee, are you done forever? Do you have to work another 2 years before you can support another single employee? I don't know. They have not said.
Yep. Yep. And what they're trying to do as well, I'm always trying to think, okay, what's the rationale? Why are they doing what they're doing? They're trying to distribute the nominations evenly and try to
Mhm.
spread them out so that one employer doesn't dominate, one industry doesn't dominate. And I think, you can go back and you can look and see where the majority of the occupations are coming from. They have lists of their, top 10 most frequent knocks that are given nominations. And by its very nature, there are certain industries that rely more heavily on these programs than others. So I understand, and they've always tried to be a little bit more equal and in distributing across industry, but now they're also starting to limit employer. So it'll be interesting. We'll let you know, Ricardo. We'll let you know.
Mhm. Yeah, and Chad has a question on hybrid work, and this is an important question too, right? This is something that comes up often. So, as long as the company, the Alberta-based employer, has some sort of physical office location that employees can come to on a regular basis or as needed, and hopefully they also have a business license for those premises, that's an important piece. And then the worker has to be working physically present in Alberta. That's the important piece. But if some of your work is in the office and some of your work is at home, I would say there's probably a reasonable argument for that. And you're going to want to support that with letters from your employer, business license showing that the employer does have an office, something from the website, something showing that, on some sort of basis, you do come into the office, so a letter from your employer. But this is all stuff that you have to work a little bit harder to prove to AAIP that you are meeting the minimum eligibility requirements for the job offer and for the employment.
Yes. I'm going to give a few other little little miscellaneous questions that have popped up. So Bobo says, is the AOS Masterclass course different from the Express Entry Masterclass membership? Yes, it is 100%. So as many people are already aware, if I flip over here, and if we go back to the main site, you will see that we have in the past had a lot of different courses. Some have kind of surfaced, some we've pulled down. I have a spousal and a study permit course, both of which I had to pull down because of changes that we're now revising. Like it is really hard to keep an active current course because of what the government does. It takes an unbelievable amount of work to do one that's actually worth marketing, that's worth selling, that has value. And so right now you'll see here that we have the Express Entry Accelerator course. When you subscribe to this, you guys, I recreated the whole bloody thing here over Christmas, over the New Year's into January, so that for 2024, it would cover everything, all of the category-based draws, all those things. And it is super, super up to date and complete. we are in the process right now of putting the finishing touches on the online courses, the actual lessons for the Alberta Opportunity Stream course. It is distinct from Express Entry, but just to reiterate, once you subscribe once to this, you have access for life. So if I upgrade the course next year, the year after, like I don't understand why any consultant wouldn't, or lawyer who wants to stay up to date on what's happening with Express Entry wouldn't subscribe, because you get access to it, as well as master classes, which I typically do every 2 weeks. So you can come back to as many master classes as you want, where it's really an opportunity to get specific questions answered that maybe you couldn't find in the course. Well, this is the same for the Alberta Opportunity Stream. We know, and the reason I did it this year, was willing to do this, because I was always afraid that they were going to blow it up and then it would be a waste, and there really isn't a whole lot of numbers. But because they're doing it all year, and because there's such a high demand to understand how to do this, like this is Alberta is Alicia and this is our bread and butter. Like we're in Alberta. And so we've now released this. So this course right now, the lessons are being created as we speak, essentially. And until all of the lessons are filled, we will be hosting masterclass sessions to answer your questions in real time. And that's why I do it. And as it gets closer to the actual launch date for July, well, I've got time blocked off where I may go every night if I need to, depending upon the numbers of people that are subscribing. So when you subscribe to this Alberta Opportunity Stream, you'll have access throughout the whole year with any changes, updates, and be able to attend every single masterclass you want to throughout the whole year. So those are the two that we have. It's this way because I can't take the chance of having a course that has old information that's outdated, which makes it extremely, extremely challenging. So there's the answer, Bobo. Varun, he says he's got his e-coper. Thanks, Mark and Alicia, for conducting these live sessions. These are super helpful. You are very, very welcome, my friend. And then let's see, what else do we have here? Jordy says, hey, Mark and Alicia, tuning in from Trinidad and Tobago. Love your content. Really been a help for me to understand Canadian immigration. You're very welcome. And then let's see here. Okay, now don't do super chats, you guys, because our Q&A is focused on Alberta. But Kratos says, my firm was acquired by another firm, so my payslips and bank statements show a different name after a certain date. Is only bank statements okay? Technically, we could fit this into AOS as well. Alicia, how would you answer this when there's an acquisition of a company?
Yeah, and so you will for sure want to have letters of explanation. You'll want to show what the old company was. You'll want to show what the new company was. Hopefully in the new company's letter, you can talk about, hey, my firm was acquired. Sometimes what I've done for clients in the past is usually there's a press release. If it's a large company, they'll have something on the website that says we were acquired as of this day, and they have a press release. And I actually put the press release in there too, so that the officer can figure out, okay, well, why were the pay slips and everything under a different name, and then they've transitioned, and you just have something to back it up from the employer, hopefully from publicly accessible documents on the website, and then in the LOE.
Perfect. All right, I'm talking to Igor here in the background because everything is so crazy here. Chad says, appreciate your guys' job very much. You're very welcome. Okay, so once again, for those of you who have been tuning in late, we're up to about 320 people watching live. This episode was really focused on this whole race to file with the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program. And we talked in the beginning about just some critical, essential things that you need to be aware of. And of all of those things within that new checklist that you as an individual have to deal with, by far the most important is really what your employer needs to do. And there are new changes, new updates that have been embedded within the new checklist. So this will be a recording. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do that, because we'll be going live frequently as more information comes out. As we see what happens here with this new, this new gong show, I think June 11th is going to be as much a learning experience for everyone, especially the province. I'd love to get someone from the province to come on and join us and talk about this, but ultimately I doubt that's going to happen. But just stay tuned, and we'll try to be the source of information to help guide you through all aspects of this. Once again, this, like all of our live streams, the Canadian Immigration Institute is sponsoring this. So the courses and how we run those DIY courses and the master classes provides a lot of support for all the social media outreach that we do. And remember, we are a Canadian immigration law firm. So Holthe Immigration Law is the firm that both Alicia and I do our legal work out of. And if you ever need assistance or direction or guidance, or you have specific questions, all you have to do is slide over to our website, Holthe Immigration Law. It's holthelaw.com, and just click on book a consultation. And you can go here and you can book, with Alicia, myself, Igor, we're all here available to assist you guys. So that's always there. Any last
And I just,
comments, Alicia? I know we were going to wrap up with the very, very last thing on our list that we were going to talk about was this: what does the future look like?
yeah. And I just want to throw in one last comment. If you're sitting there waiting in the queue, hoping to try to get your application in right now because the portal is open and not working apparently, maybe Chad, you've got a chance. Remember that it's not only that employer declaration form, the new checklist also requires your employer to provide their business license. And so this is something where a whole bunch of people are scrambling to try to get their employers to provide their updated, valid municipal business licenses for anybody who has an employer that is required to have a business license. So pretty much any business that's operating in one of the major centers, Calgary or Edmonton or a major city, you probably need to have that business license. So if you look on the document checklist, that's where it's buried. So this brand new, it's not on this page, but it's on the brand new document checklist under the employer declaration form. And the contract, now it's got business license. This didn't used to exist in the old document checklist either. This is brand new. And if you look at the employer declaration form, so Mark, if you flip over to the employer declaration form itself, when you scroll down to page 2 of the employer declaration form, all these declarations at the end say that the employer is going to follow up. If AAIP actually contacts them, then they have to provide all this other supporting documentation. They acknowledge they can provide it and follow up, and that the AAIP will decide based on their black box set of, decision points whether they're going to issue this nomination. And if you look back, sorry, on the checklist again, Mark, on the dark blue part of the checklist, um, at the top of the page, if you keep scrolling, I think it's up a little bit from this page, documents to
Oh,
support.
the actual breakdown. Do you know what, Alicia? I actually saw that here. If we just go back to the form, um,
Yeah,
oops,
of
I've got
all the different
too
things they
many.
could ask for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you go down here, they're listed right here.
Oh, there we go.
So yeah, they're on the form as well. And these are not required up front, you guys. These aside from the business license, which, Alicia, if you look at the checklist, the business license, it even says, boy, we've got too many screens here. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Let's shrink this down so I can make sure I'm looking at the right ones. Oh, not that one. Here we go. You can see here it says, where is it?
It's under the employer
Right.
declaration form is the license.
Is that where it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. So keep going
Requirements,
down.
declaration, there.
Yeah.
You can see here it says provide a copy if applicable. So publicly traded companies and things like that, where all of their public data, there's no doubt that they're legitimate. There are some exceptions to it, but for the vast majority, business licenses are required. So just be aware. And like I said, if you have any questions or uncertainties, we're here to help. You can just book an immigration consultation with us. But we understand this world that we're in right now it's a difficult one. And I'm going to go back to your blog post, which if people have not read it, I strongly encourage you guys to slide back, and you can access it very easily by going to our website, going to the blog and resources, clicking on our blogs, and we are constantly uploading. Like Igor just did a spousal sponsorship update here, but our blog posts, this one that Alicia wrote, breaks down as well right from the website itself, the draws. So this one is a disaster. If some get through, I would absolutely love to hear from you. We're doing what we can with our clients as well. But July, August, September, October, November, December, there's still 6 more chances. And I see the big, push to get complete applications is going to be from June to July. And I'll be honest, I don't believe that many of these 735 applications are going to be complete. So even though they get them in, I just don't believe they're going to be complete. So I'm not as stressed about this June 11th date, because I believe many of these allocations are actually going to get pushed to the later months as the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program gets their act figured out. So I'm just going to jump back here to our last little list here and bring it up again. And it's this one right here. what does the future look like, Alicia, for people? If you could give them some either hope or a reality check or whatever it might be, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of a reality check, a little bit of hope. The reality check is that there is not an easy pathway to PR right now. And so be diligent about who you're working for. Make sure it's a high skilled job. Make sure your employer is on board if you're looking to have an employer support of some point. And that might be a provincial support, so that employer might be looking at trying to help you through a PNP program. If so, really do your homework. Make sure that you've looked through all those program requirements very, very carefully, and your employer understands what they're signing off onto. If you're looking for trying to get extra points on arranged employment for express entry, if you're looking at those 50 points are huge. So that's important. If you're looking for an LMIA, make sure that your employer is also on board and they understand what an arranged employment offer entails and what sort of letters they have to provide. So those are some things right now to be looking at in terms of reality checking. There are definite things you can do, but it's not going to be easy and you have to do your homework ahead of time. The one ray of hope, we haven't talked a lot about express entry today, but the one ray of hope is that we did have a CEC only draw. We had that PNP draw on the 30th, and then on the 31st of May, we had a CEC only draw. And that's the first time it's happened since September 2021. So for those people who are desperate and managed to keep their work permits alive and well in Canada, hopefully they will have some chance at CEC, but we just don't know if there will be another CEC draw or if they're going to go back to targeted draws or general draws. So it's a little bit up in the air right now. Make sure that you're doing what you can. I saw some people saying that they're learning French. For now, that is a way to also look at getting increased points for express entry, and it might be a way of looking to get an employer-specific work permit. If you can get those NCLC level 5s, maybe you can move to a Mobilité francophone work permit. So those are things to consider.
You bet. And just Bobo's asking again here about the courses. So just to reiterate, you guys, the Express Entry and the Alberta Opportunity are two distinct courses, two distinct master classes, two distinct subscriptions, but the same principles apply to both. Unlimited access, unlimited master classes. And all you need to do is just go here, click on the link. You can learn more about it. But effectively, as the volumes increase, as people are interested in subscribing, we're going to have as many master classes as we need to make sure that people are prepared. And obviously, Alicia and I are going to continue to go do these lives. We were going to do this as a recording, and it will be our episode 145. But at this stage, we wanted to just do it live and make it interactive because it's all so fresh. So good luck to everybody who's trying to log in. Hopefully, our one horse in the race here, Chad, is going to be able to get in, and I'd love to. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Chad just posted that he was sitting at 192 here in line. So, oh boy! And then one last little piece I'll just share once again. Those of you who are looking for up-to-date information, it would appear that the Alberta Immigration and Multiculturalism site right here on Twitter is as good as any. Because it looks like this is where they're posting the most up-to-date information and not actually on their website, which is where most people would expect them to be posting information. But if we update here, oh, look at this.
Oh.
They've now finally updated it. But by the time the website changes, boy, I'll tell you, I'm not holding my breath that, that the website is going to beat a Twitter post. So I'd go onto X here and do that. All right. There we go. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Hope this was helpful and informative. If you haven't subscribed, please do it. Subscribe to the Canadian Immigration Podcast as well. All of this information is here to just try to help you guys navigate this crazy world we call Canadian immigration.